Welcome to our Poetry Spotlight, where today we're doing a deep A-star level dive into Sujata Bhatt's really powerful poem, A Different History. Together, we are going to unpack every layer of this thing.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the poem's core message, then we'll track how it develops, zoom right in on the language, figure out the speaker's voice, and then wrap it all up with how to nail this in an exam. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first, we have to get to the absolute heart of the poem. What is Bhatt really trying to get out here? What's that central idea she wants us to wrestle with? Right from the jump, the poem hits us with this fantastic, kind of surprising image. Now, Pan, he's the Greek god of nature. And there's this famous old story that a writer named Plutarch declared great Pan is dead, which was later seen as the symbolic end of paganism. But look what Bhatt does. She brings him back. She says, no, that reverence for nature, it didn't die. It just moved. It found a new thriving home in India. So right away, she's blending Western mythology with Eastern spirituality.
Now, to really understand what Bhatt is up to, we need to have this key concept in our toolkit: postcolonialism. Honestly, this poem is a masterclass in it. It's not just about a historical event. It's about the messy, complicated, and often painful inheritance of the British Empire, how it still affects the culture, the identity, and even the language of India today.
And that right there brings us to the poem's central conflict. It's a real tug of war. On one hand, you've got this beautiful culture where nature is holy, trees are sacred, and books are treated with almost religious respect. And on the other hand, you have this violent imposition of a foreign language, what Bhatt calls the oppressor's tongue, and all the cultural damage that came along with it.
So how does Bhatt actually build this argument? A great poem isn't just a collection of ideas. It has an architecture, a structure that's deliberately designed to guide us. Let's take a look at how she puts it all together. This is it. This is the poem's volta, its crucial turning point. The first stanza, which is much longer, carefully builds up this incredible world of spiritual harmony with nature. And then, bam! The second stanza drops and the whole mood just darkens. We pivot from celebrating this amazing heritage to really sharp, critical look at a painful history.
And this is just so smart because it shows how the form of the poem is actually part of its meaning. Bhatt's choice of free verse? That's not lazy. It perfectly mirrors the messy, uncontrolled, sometimes chaotic feeling of a post-colonial identity. The two-stanza structure creates that stark contrast, that before and after vibe. And the enjambment, where one line just flows into the next without stopping, that reflects how history and culture are never just static things. They're always moving, always changing, always flowing.
All right, time for the really deep analysis. If you want those top marks, you've got to be able to talk about the writer's craft. So let's get out the magnifying glass and zoom in on 3 key moments to see exactly how Bhatt creates such powerful effects.
What a line. It's so striking. By personifying the book, by giving it feelings, Bhatt makes knowledge itself something sacred, like a living thing. This isn't just a pretty phrase. She's directly connecting that book back to the sacred tree its paper came from, weaving learning and nature into one.
And here, the poem suddenly zooms out to this huge, universal question. She makes us stop and think, wait a minute, are languages themselves evil? Or is it the people who use them as weapons? It's such a sophisticated argument because it separates the English language as a tool from the violent history of the people who imposed it. Wow, this is an absolutely brutal but brilliant image. A scythe, it's for harvesting crops, but here it's harvesting souls. It makes you think of the Grim Reaper. That verb, cropped, it feels like being cut down, diminished, and swooping sounds like a predator. This metaphor just perfectly captures the physical and psychological violence of having your identity forcibly cut away.
So let's think about who is actually speaking to us in this poem. Figuring out the speaker's voice, their persona, is so important for understanding the poem's emotional core. The speaker's voice isn't simple. It's not just angry or sad or proud, it's incredibly nuanced. And the key word, the word you have to use, is ambivalent. It means holding 2 opposite feelings at the same time. There's this huge pride in India's rich heritage, but also a little hint that maybe these strict traditions can feel oppressive sometimes. That complexity, that is the post-colonial experience.
Right, so the million-dollar question, how do we take all this amazing analysis and actually turn it into a top-grade exam answer? Let's make it happen. Okay,
Look closely at a question like this. The key words are in what ways and vividly. The examiner does not want a summary of the poem. They want to know how. How does she do it? You need to talk about her structural choices, her imagery, her metaphors. That's where you show off your analytical skills.
Now, if you want to immediately signal to an examiner that you are operating at an A-star level, you've got to use the right language. Weaving these 3 keywords into your essay, postcolonialism, cultural hybridity, and ambivalence, will instantly elevate your analysis. It shows you're not just reading a poem, you're putting it into a much larger, critical conversation.
And that brings us to the poem's final mind-bending puzzle. Bhatt leaves us with this really shocking idea that the grandchildren of the oppressed will actually grow to love that strange language. She shows us how the oppressor's tongue, a weapon of cultural destruction, can, over generations, be taken, changed, and transformed into a powerful new voice for a totally new hybrid identity. The weapon becomes a tool. And that, right there, is the strange, difficult, and different history she forces us to confront.